Welcome to the Secrets Women Keep podcast. I am your secret keeper and confidant, Lauren White. I'm a qualified counsellor and sexologist, madam of a secret society, author of Permission, and a witty, highly intuitive lounge room dancing introvert. I help you as an exceptional woman in entrepreneurship to see, love, and trust all the parts of yourself, especially the unseen. Let's pull back the curtain, light the candelabra, and remove the mask. These are the secrets women keep. Hello, and welcome to the Secrets Women Keep podcast. I'm your host and confidant, Lauren White, and today we have a really rich guest, and I mean rich in every definition of the word. Her name is Denise Duffield Thomas. Denise is the money mentor for the new wave of online entrepreneurs who want to make money and change the world. She helps women charge premium prices, release the fear of money, and create first-class lives. Her books Lucky Bitch, Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and Chillpreneur give a fresh and pretty funny roadmap to living a life of abundance without the burnout. Her money bootcamp has helped over 6,000 students from all around the world, and I am one of those 6,000 students, so I can definitely vouch for that. She's a lazy introvert, a Hay House author, and an unbusy mother of 3. She owns the Lawn Rose Farm, and she lives by the beach in sunny New South Wales, Australia. Denise, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. What a great introduction. It's really cool to have that. Rich. I love the word rich. It's such a cool word.
It is such a good word, and it's a word that can really take people back sometimes. I think it's like rich, or something that we talk about in Money Bootcamp is the word rich and the connotations of rich and what people automatically associate it with. But you think rich in every different definition of the word, like I have rich experiences, that was a rich sensation, that tasted rich. And it's like, it's not, it's definitely more multifaceted. It's safe for the word rich to apply to money as well, and wealth.
Yes, exactly. And I heard Susie Orman say this on stage, where she said, "I stand before you a very, very wealthy woman." And it blew my mind, because I'd never heard women even claim that for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it really did make a massive shift in me. I think it was about 10 years ago. And I just went, oh my God, we're allowed to talk about money.
Yes, we are allowed. And you've been a massive permission granter for all of us. I mean, it's, I know your reach goes well beyond everyone that steps into Money Bootcamp. It's everyone who reads your book, everyone who follows you online. And it is just such a game changer to take women and people out of the shame and the taboo around money and the secrets that we keep around it, and to start talking about it and unburdening and claiming it for ourselves, so that we can show others that they can claim it for themselves. That's the power of this work that has just come through you and activated so many of us. I know so many people in bootcamp and have made such incredible connections that have changed my life. So it's very powerful, and I really want to thank you. I really want to thank you to any entrepreneurs listening out there. I really want to thank Denise for sending those bloody emails when you're doing a launch, because it was because of those emails that I signed up. It was like, I signed up, I was 8 months postpartum with my second baby, and I literally just forgot to sign up. That's all that had happened. And then I got another email. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I was going to sign up, and just grabbed my card, had the money there, which felt really good to sign up with the money there, and took that step. So thank you for reminding us to step forward when so many entrepreneurs hide during launches, or just don't.
Oh yeah,
don't.
I used to as well. I used to too. I'd be like, yeah, everyone's seen this. No one wants to hear from me. And before I had a team, actually, that I would be the one sending them, and I would chicken out. And so now I've got nothing to do with sending those out anymore. So I can't sabotage myself.
Yes, yes, depersonalize it. It's for all of our highest good that we receive those emails, because
Absolutely.
what is on the other side is something that changes us. Your program and your content has been in my psyche since 2016, and it's so beautiful how it sits there, and then it pops up, and then another part of it pops up, and it's lots of my big takeaway from Money Boot Camp is the incremental upgrades, that all the small things that you do compound and make for a really rich life.
Well, they really do. And that's with anything, right? You don't have to be perfect, but if you're just moving forward in a teeny tiny way, and I like to automate those things as much as possible, and they all layer in and then they become part of who you are. And that's what changes your life. And I used to, as a kid and even in my 20s, wish for a lottery win. I just wanted something magic to come in and wipe away all my problems and magically transform my life. And it very rarely happens to anyone. It happens through those little tweaks and changes that sometimes you don't notice, or you don't think it's going to make a difference, but it really does with anything.
Yep, for sure, for sure. I'm a big fan of lots of small actions, especially for high achievers that can sometimes default to the thinking of it's got to be a week-long retreat or nothing. It's got to be something like the one end of the spectrum, or I don't do anything at all. It's got to be a year-long program, or I don't do anything. It's just gets us out of that black and white thinking and really allows us to come into the power of small things. So thank you for that. Thank you for that gift. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Thank you.
There's something I really want to ask you, and it's about the bathroom stall moments in life. Now, the bathroom stall moments are those ones where you're trying to hold it all together when everything feels like it's falling apart. Like you're sobbing and there's snot, and you're just like, I want to be seen by someone. I want someone to tell me it's okay, but then I want to be invisible in the same breath. Like, no one see me right now. I just can't. I just want to hide. I'm just wondering, have you ever had like a bathroom stall moment in your life? And you can substitute it with a stairwell or an elevator or a car or an office stall. And more specifically with you, I would love to know if you've had a bathroom stall moment about your money situation.
Yeah, I had so many of these in my 20s. So I was living in Sydney away from my family. I was the first person to go to university, and it was a really big deal. And then it all just fell apart. Like I couldn't cope with life, basically.
Yeah.
And I had this boyfriend who was very damaged and experienced a lot of trauma in his life. And I couldn't deal with that either, but I just kept on clinging on to him. And I worked 3 jobs, and I would give him money, and just all these things happened. But we did some long distance stuff for a while, and it was just really, really horrible. And I just remember one moment I was in my bed and I just got off the phone from him, and I just went, oh my God, what's that smell? And there was a moldy banana under my pillow. And it was like, what? And when you just wake up and you go, oh my God. And I was lying in this bed, and I had just enough room to kind of go in because there was stuff all over the bed. I didn't have a pillowcase on my pillow. I was just like, oh my God, I'm just waiting for this man to love me, this damaged boy to love me. And he's not going to. And it was such a wake up call. And I'd had so many moments like this in my 20s where I was just like, I'm on my own, and there's nobody here to help me. I've had those moments at work. But I would say one that was fairly recent. So it was a couple of years ago. I was on a book tour in America, and it was like this 5-city book tour. And it actually came about because all I wanted to do was go on this trip. And it was a trip, like a very expensive trip to go to this mastermind. But I felt guilty about going by myself. And so I was like, oh, well, I guess, Mark and the kids come. And then I felt guilty about just going for this trip. So I was like, oh, I guess I could do a book event. And then, oh, well, while I'm going to that city, I may as well go to that city. I may as well go to that city. And it ended up being this 5-city book tour just because I couldn't just go to this thing by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like the day before one of the events, and I was so tired. And I think my youngest he was like 2.
Yeah.
And the hubby was like, well, you have to get up and feed him. And I just went, oh my God, I'm on this book tour because what? And I just had this moment of like, I'm the golden goose and everyone's sucking the life out of me. Even like my mum had come on the trip because I felt guilty about leaving her at home, and she was supposed to help and she wasn't. So I was like, oh my God, everyone was on this trip because of me. We had even paid for Mark's family to come over and meet us in one of the cities. And, you know, everyone's just like, well, go on, go do your thing, get on stage and dance kind of thing. And I was just like, oh my God, guys, I'm the golden goose and you're all killing me. And lots of things changed after that. Lots of things. We changed roles in the company. We changed boundaries. I had to really advocate space and carve out space for myself and my energy. But it was such a wake-up call moment. And actually, I found out I was pregnant on that trip too. So I was like pregnant, 2 kids, a husband, a mum, everyone. And I was just like, you guys all suck.
Yeah.
You all suck. But I had done that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I had done that. So
there'd been co-creation there. There'd been a form of co-creation there where you'd
definitely
brought them on. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. And you know, similar thing happened. I did a book tour in London, and Mark's dad looked after, I think it was even just one kid, and during my talk, and he literally met me at the back of the stage, and he was like, are you finished now with like the, you know, Willow in a pram? And I was like, can I go to the toilet? I just got off stage. You know, and so I realized that I'd set up so many things in my life where I'm like, oh no, just pile it back, pile it on. It's okay. You know, an hour of my time on stage is just as valuable as an hour of your time looking after your grandchild.
Yes.
Or, you know, and I had to get to a point where I was like, no, but I am the one that creates this with my energy and my imagination, and that's valuable. It might not look like work to other people in my family sometimes, but I was like, oh God, guys, without my imagination and creativity, all of this would go.
Yes. And I was just thinking about the US book tour. It's like you felt guilty about going on your own, so you brought everyone along, but in bringing everyone along, like the paradox is that you ended up being singled out in a way, or like it ended up singling you out and really redefining all of the relationships and the dynamics and the boundaries. So that's yes.
Book tours are honestly my biggest learning experience, because I did one in 2019 in Australia, and it was a 14-city book tour. So I would leave home on a Tuesday, do an event on Wednesday, do an event on Thursday, I'd be home on Friday kind of thing. And I did that for about 6 weeks. And I would do 2 or 3 cities in a row. And even on that tour, I'd said to my team, like, you know, you need to put in the hotel in my calendar, where I'm going, if someone's picking me up, who I'm meeting. I need the same seat on the plane. I need to be, you know, in the first 1 or 2 rows in an aisle seat because I get claustrophobic. I need this, this, and this. And there were so many times I had to push back on that and go, hang on, where am I staying? Like, you can't expect me to turn up on this thing and do all the logistics as well. Like, and I had to be like, not a bitch, but I had to kind of feel like I had to be like, I'm the talent. I am the talent, and I have to be, I'm the show pony. I'm not also plowing the fields during the day. And almost advocate for that to be like, I mean, it brought up all stuff for me, right? Because I was like, well, I'm someone who mucks in, and, you know, like, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. But it was like, yeah, but someone has to stand up on stage and do that. You know, like someone has to do that, and that's really valuable too.
It is.
And I didn't carve out enough space for it. So what was hilarious, that I was doing this book tour, and then I was also, I had all these other commitments that I'd said yes to. So I was coming home like from, it's, only 3 hours in my calendar of doing a speech and meeting people and signing books. And it was like, oh, cool, that's not that hard work. Yeah, it is. And so I would get in the cab, go back to the hotel, and then I had to do all these other commitments at night. And I was dead, and I just thought, oh my God, that's taught me something as well. So book tours for me have been the best learning experiences about what I need to thrive. And it also brings up all my stuff of like, oh, you're a diva. You think you're better than other people. Brings up all my recurring money blocks that I have to deal with.
Yes. What in regards to book tours, what money blocks did they bring up for you? Did you feel like you got a return on your investment in your book tours?
Well, it depends on what your metric is, right? And so
True.
my metric has always been no, like, and trust factor. Mm-hmm. That for me is what starts off everything. And it's actually funny. One of my tours, I hired a sell from stage coach because I was like, oh my God, I've just been half-assing this business for so long. Maybe I need to hire an expert to help me. And it really it bombed because it was not me. And so I realized as long as I can cover my costs on my book tour, it is about the know, like, and trust factor. And that has paid off for me so many times because people go, oh, wow, I met her and she's a real person. Oh, I think I might join her boot camp. Mm-hmm. But me from selling from stage going, go and join my boot camp. And there's like, a prize for the first 5 people. It did not work at all. And so I would do it again and again, just with that, that expectation of like, hey, this is just to connect with people. And actually what I would love to do is I've got this dream of hiring one of those massive big tour buses that, you can sleep on and stuff like that and doing a coast to coast. And then it only costs like, I think like $5,000 to completely cover the bus in your own branding. Whoa. So I want it to look like a giant combi van.
Yeah.
And then just go from coast to coast. But I almost did the same thing. I was like, yeah, Mark and the kids can come. And then I was like, no. I'm like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And so I just, it's a weird thing for an introvert to do, but it's like every 2 years I'll go and just meet a whole bunch of people, and then it takes 2 years for me to recover.
Yeah. No, I get that as a fellow introvert, but it's very, I mean, from what you've shared, it's very laser focused. You've got that. You're one of the people that really taught me that you can, like, being an introvert doesn't mean that you're shy. Like, and I was like, what? I thought being an introvert meant it's like, no, it doesn't mean that you're shy. It doesn't mean that you don't want to be with people. And the stage is a good kind of boundary. It's the meet and greet afterward that I imagine that could get a little bit taxing if you have a lot of that, or
for sure. But I think because it feels, for me, it is work. It doesn't mean it's not real. It's not like I go home and go people, but it's just like it is my job, and so I think that helps. And because I was a performer growing up, the putting on makeup and putting on like a costume kind of thing is, and then I'm like, oh, hi, and I'll pose for photos and I'll meet 100 people, but I can't do that every day, and so then someone will be like, oh, I'm in your town, I'd love to have coffee. And I'm like, oh, no, not because I don't like people. It's just that's just not, it's, yeah. I'm like, well, no, I've set a time that we can connect. It's every 2 years.
Yeah.
In this venue. But now knowing that, I have to build that in. And I was like, oh, I didn't even build in any massages or anything like that as part of the tour. And so next time I'll be like, well, this is what I need, and this is what happens, and this is what happens. And yeah.
It'll be so different. Yeah. It's each one that you've done. I remember, I don't know that it was a book tour. You went to London at once. Like you went to London at one stage as well. Each one will hopefully allow you to be more discerning and selective and precise about what really works to keep your energy operating where you need it to operate in order to reach people and connect with people.
Absolutely.
So this next one will be epic. The next one will be epic.
Oh, I can't wait to go to London again. I think I've done 4 book tours in London now, and it's just a place that I love going. But now that my kids are a little bit older, my oldest is 3, you know, like I can be like, oh, well, you guys stay with Mark's family. You guys be there, and I'll go to London by myself. And actually, the last tour that I did in London, I was only there 6 days, but I could only do that because I didn't have any kids with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, I arrived on the Tuesday. I did an event Thursday and Friday, and then I think I went home Sunday. And it was it was so full on.
It's pretty full on. Yeah, I saw your picture when you landed, and whenever I land in London, I feel like I'm gonna be sick. Like just that lag. And I just looked at your picture, and you kind of look still like fresh, but you're really happy that you're there. And I'm going, oh, you look so good for someone who's just
well. You know what the secret is to that?
I know what your secret is, but please tell the listeners.
Yes, you have to fly business or first class.
Yep.
You have to. And I used to really bulk at the cost of it because it's so much more expensive. I mean, it's the cost of my first car times 3 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the advocating for what you need and yourself, right? But on a smaller scale, it's still advocating for what your energy needs. I did a speaking thing, you know, a year and a half ago in Sydney, and I was like, well, I'll need a hotel the night before. And they were like, but it's in Sydney. And I said, yeah, but I'm 3 hours from Sydney. So you want me to speak at 11. I have to be there at 10, which means I'd have to leave at 7, which really means I'd have to leave at 6. And I just said, no, this is what I need. I need a hotel the night before because, again, I've been so used to my whole life, and so many of us do this. Well, I can make do, and I can, you know, I'm not a diva, and I can muck in like anyone else. And I just went, well, it just doesn't work for me to do that. And you know what? This is the funniest thing too. It was someone that I knew. It was someone who I'd worked with years ago, who I'd considered a friend, and I still charged her for it. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, well, this is what I need. So yeah, and I've learned that lesson the other way where I have done freebies for friends, and honestly, the energy, because it's not balanced, the deficit of that has to come from somewhere, and it comes from my life force, and it doesn't feel fun, and it doesn't feel good. I've come away from a friend's event, and I hobbled into the taxi, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, it wasn't a win-win.
No,
it wasn't a fair energy exchange, and so I have to deal with that.
Yes. Okay. It's like an energetic hangover. Just that sense of like you're left with less than what you had before you started, before you did that thing, before you said yes. So what's your best? How do you manage? Yeah. What's your best advice or guidance around energetic exchanges, especially between women, with money, without money? What's your best advice around that?
Yeah, so a big thing I see is women bartering with each other, as in swapping skills and services without any money exchanged. Mm-hmm. And this is so funny. I did a talk recently, and I was talking for 20 minutes about bartering, and someone put in the comments, what is this bartering she's talking about? But they spelled it BADDARING. I was like, oh, I should have said bartering. Yeah. Barter. Is that bartering? So a lot of
it's Australian bartering.
Bartering. It's sheep. We give each other sheep. No, it's so I did it in my first year too. Someone I know who was an amazing photographer, but didn't feel confident charging for her work, which she totally should have. And I was like, oh, well, I built my own website on Typepad. How about I build your website and you do photos for me? And she did these amazing photos. She did like 1,200 edited photos for me. And she got this Typepad blog by someone who's not a graphic designer. And so in that case, I won. But then I've done other arrangements with other people where, you know, oh, yeah, I'll coach you for free and you do this thing for me, and they never do it. And so this is this is fine, right? Yeah, there's sometimes you don't have enough money, but it's this energetic thing of like, well, I can't receive money, or I'm not worthy of money, or I'm not responsible enough for money, or just energetically, I am not open for business. And so what that does is when you're just setting up all these side bartering arrangements, you will attract people who want it for free. So they'll ask for discounts. Even if you think it's a secret arrangement that nobody knows about, energetically, you're just attracting more of it. And so an interesting thing happens when you set a line in the sand and you just go, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. It does shift the energy of your business. And so even if you don't necessarily, it's not forever, it's worth an experiment to see if it shifts and changes the people, because it's a little hole in your defenses.
That's right.
And people sense that. And so they'll be like, oh, well, can I get it for free? And then because you feel like, oh, I've already made an exception, you feel bad, and then that adds another little way for people to bypass your boundaries. So yeah, I just think it's an interesting one just to say no. And sometimes people are surprised, like they'll, like, friends, they'll ask me to speak and I'll be like, yeah, here's my speaking fee. I mean, I'll give them a discount. Cool, fine. But I'm like, yeah, because otherwise I'll just not come.
Yeah.
Like, you have to lure me out of my house with money.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's about, it's not just about the one thing. Like what I'm hearing from what you're saying now, it's not about the one favor or the one thing. It goes on and on and on, and it doesn't stop. Like you just never have a lid on it if you keep saying yes to all of those things. And then one day you look at your business and it's like, oh, I've got a hobby business because I've basically built the no, like, and trust factor, which is very valid by doing things for free. There is a way to do that, but by consistently putting out the energetics of not being worthy or valuable enough to receive money from that exchange, then it can dig a bigger issue. So really the earlier you get onto that one, the better it is for your bottom line and for your clarity and your purpose. And it makes you far more discerning about what you will and what you are and you're not willing to do as well. Because otherwise there's just no cap on it. It's like, oh yeah, I'll do anything. But when it comes to, oh, this is the exchange, it's like, is that exchange, like, does it feel valuable for me to do the preparation for that and the speaking time?
Exactly.
Oh gosh. So
this is one of the ones I did recently was no summits and no training on other people's programs, because so many people would ask me that I was like, oh, I don't have the time or energy to evaluate each one of these requests.
Yes.
And so for me, it became a blanket no, because I realize there's so much in that where we ask each other to do things like that. Oh, could just come and do a training in my program, a paid program, right? So I was like, but what happens to that IP in the quote unquote real world? Like my husband used to work in marketing and he'd be like, well, you would license that for a year and you would have very strict agreements of how they use your face, how they would market that. And so I was like, oh, does that mean my face is part of the marketing for it? Does that mean my face is part of the Facebook ads or the sales page for it? For how long? How long can they use this for? What happens if that person does something in their business that I disagree with? Then I'm going to have to, ask them to remove that from their program. And so I realized that all the variables were so confusing. I just went, oh, I don't do that. And someone asked me this week and I almost made an exception because I like her. And I was like, oh, and then I just said, oh, hey, babe, here's why I don't do that. And it's just a black and white thing for me, but I would love to come on your podcast. Yeah. I'll go on anyone's podcast because it's no prep for me.
Yeah.
I tell the same stories again and again. Yeah. And it's very low stakes from a like reputational IP kind of point of view. Obviously, if I wouldn't go on certain people's podcasts, but it just made me realize that sometimes, the boundaries are there for a reason. And usually it's an energy management thing too, because I don't have the energy to look at, and everyone thinks they're the exception to your boundary. Everyone.
Yes. It's so true. It's like, come on. none the exception. I'm special. Everyone, I'm special.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, look, you are special. not saying you're not, but it is a lot. It is very clarifying knowing where your no is, and it allows you to keep the focus on all the things that are working and flowing and going well. And your business model is really really incredible. It makes perfect sense. It flows. You capture people at different points, and you've done some different things here or there, which you've always made good use of if you haven't continued them. This is what I've witnessed as an outsider. But ultimately, something I did want to ask you was about bootcamp, because you've created this incredibly safe space there. Like, to have a Facebook group with 6,000 people that feels safe is really, really something special. Course participants feel like it's a container that's conducive to revealing their stories and secrets about their money situation and about their escalating wealth as well. And I was wondering, would you say that you've heard all the secrets that women keep about money and wealth, or are you ever still surprised?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised because, like, I have heard pretty much everything. What I'm so curious about, though, is finding all of those little nuances. And we do monthly live calls in bootcamp, as you know, and every month I go, oh God, what are we even going to talk about? Like, surely we've covered everything. And we haven't, and so last month we talked about weddings. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much in here that I'd never considered before about our money and just the topic of weddings. And we went into so many different little places within that. The month before, we had a massive discussion about allowance and pocket money and how that's impacted our money stuff. And so it's not that I'm shocked, it's just that I'm always so energized by where the conversation goes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we shift and change, right? And so we, like, even just the time that I've been running bootcamp in 9 years, like, I've had 3 kids since then, and that's shifted the way I see things. The conversations that the world is having over the last couple of years has given us a new layer and a new nuance to how we talk about money and privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, the world's always going to change. We're always going to change. And there's going to be new people who come in and bring their stuff as well. We're at the moment in bootcamp, we're very US heavy, I'd say, because it's probably 60% American, and then it's Australia, then the UK, and then Canada and New Zealand, which is still a very, Eastern view of the world. And we have people from all over, but, that's going to shift and change as we grow too. And even personally, the biggest challenge that I had at the start was, I was like, well, this is a democracy, everyone's equal. And then I realized that groups don't always work that way. You need somebody to put a line in the sand and say, no, this is the purpose of the group, these are the values of the group, and this is what's in and out of scope in this space. And I resisted that for a long time. And so there'd be points in the last couple of years where I've just gone, oh, maybe it's time to shut that group down because it's hard to manage. And I had to get over my resistance to getting help in there. So now we have a community manager. I had to get over my feeling as the group grew that I had to read every single post and solve every problem. And what I found, though, that energetically from the group, we seem to attract people who are very self-managed in a lot of ways, and they come in and use the group in such a beautiful way, but without dumping their stuff in there, or everyone seems to be very mature in that way. But I know that we'll go through shifts as it grows again. And I always kind of thought, we'll get to 10,000 and evaluate and see how we go, because I've resisted creating spin-off groups and all the stuff that I've seen not work in other bigger groups. So I think community is such it's such a playground for bringing up your stuff in lots of ways too, as the leader and as a participant. And one sabotage that I see that comes up actually quite regularly in the group is people's unresolved stuff around being excluded or feeling left out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about it actually this week. We've got our live call this week, and about how, you know, people come in and go, oh, everyone's ahead of me. And it's like, well, that's the point of the group, is that you can normalize those conversations for yourself, and you can be triggered with your stuff. And so sometimes that's one of the reasons why people leave, is because they go, oh my God, there's all these people in here who are kicking big goals. And it's like, well, that's what you wanted. You wanted to be exposed to that. And some people have been in there for 5 years and they started out really, really small, and then they pop back in and go, oh, I haven't posted for 2 years, but now I'm a multimillionaire. Hi guys.
Seriously, it's true. And it's just like, well, because they've been out there doing the thing and putting the effort in, and and it's incredibly inspiring. But yeah, that's why you sign up to your program, is to be around that energy, because there is still a lot of poverty mindset out there. There is still a lot of, like, even the word, people using the word expensive, like what's expensive, and that's, that's outrageous, what that's priced and things like that. And like being in boot camp for the last 5 years, I've got this excellent, like, kind of armor that comes up that's like, okay, they think it's expensive, but what do I think? And it's like, no, I think it might be out of my reach financially at this point in my life, but to someone else, that thing has value. And that's just what I say to myself. Like, even if I think, like, remember when the pandemic first happened, and in boot camp we're talking about that really ugly, horrific, like, it was like a bathrobe that Louis Vuitton had released for like $16,000 or $30,000 or something, and it sold out overnight because people saw value in that. People knew that they were going to be at home, and they wanted this luxury item to be at home with, and they saw value in that. And we talked about that in boot camp. We had a bit of a laugh about it, and it was just like, yeah, well, people value that, and that
is what it is.
It is what it is. It's not. There's no charge to it. It's got nothing to do with you. It doesn't say anything about you. It's not an attack on you. It's to say, this is something for you. You can buy what you value. You can access the freedom that feels most aligned with you when you have more access to this resource, when you're open to receiving it, it's incredibly powerful being around that community, and that consistent exposure is really it up levels you even when you're not taking the action. I think it's just that consistent exposure to normalizing these conversations, and I was wanting to ask you, like, just say you had two women in front of you that had the exact same financial situation. One doesn't say anything about it, doesn't talk about it, doesn't share about it, and another one does talk about it and share about it, her secrets and stories. Do you believe that energetically sharing and speaking gives you any leverage when it comes to your wealth and prosperity?
Yes and no. So I was always the person I loved talking about money, always. And as a kid, I loved starting businesses, and in my 20s, I loved talking about money. And the problem was I didn't have anyone to talk to about it who could receive it in the way that was useful for me. And so context is everything in that way, because in my early days of business, I remember saying to my mum, like, oh, wow, someone's paying me $500 to go speak at their event. And she was just like, oh, that's my salary at the nursing home. And I felt horrible. I felt like such a horrible, just disgusting person. Honestly, it really rocked me. And so even now, like, my mom is not an appropriate audience for me talking about how much money I make. So who you're around is so important, because not everyone has the ears to hear it. And, that's why places like Money Bootcamp are so important, because you can say, oh, I've done this, and people will receive it, celebrate you, and also have the tools to deal with their triggers if they get triggered by it. And, you know, we kind of have a no shaming rule in bootcamp where it's like you can't shame someone else for what they spend money on or even how they earn money. It's not like we've got like arms dealers in there or anything. But so, yeah, I think, and I feel really sad for people who don't have that because their friends and family can really shame them, really derail them.
Yeah.
And so at the start, if you can't afford to buy into something, it's like, well, what are the podcasts you're listening to? And, you know, you can join free groups on Facebook. And what are the books that you're reading? That's where you have to start because it's hard not having people to go through that stuff with. But at least that's a good start to go, oh, wow, no, there are people out there who are talking about it. And this is a normal conversation to have.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. It's something that I say to say to myself is money's not going anywhere anytime soon. Sure, there are newer iterations of money and wealth and status, like Bitcoin, Dogecoin. But the sense of currency, that's not going anywhere. So it is a conversation that we do need to keep having with ourselves and other people.
And you know what? The thing that's like, obviously we have to be so mindful about the systems that keep people oppressed and poor. And like, I'm super lefty. Like, I'm like, I'll pay my taxes and I want my taxes to help the less fortunate in our society, all these things.
Yep.
But there's this sense of like, oh, well, you know, let's not contribute to the capitalist system. I'm like, but the only people who are lying awake at night worrying about that are people who want to do good in the world. The people who are buying their 20th yacht and like, you know, killing the environment, they do not give a F.
Yeah.
They're not going to be shamed out of it. And so we have to build something with what we've got. Like, you know, yes, we're dismantling systems, we're creating new things, but we're still working in this framework that we have currently. And holding yourself back, not making money, that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't solve anything. And I was very naive about that for a long time. I was very naive about money in politics, for example. And I just thought, oh wow, people just pay their taxes, and they don't.
No.
And so, yeah, I had a meeting yesterday with someone who manages our fund, our philanthropy fund, and we were, you know, talking about priorities. And I was saying, yeah, I still want to do the short-term things, and you know, there's lots of little things that we fund. But I said to her, like, I just want to make sure I'm also funding long-term change and making sure that the world is fairer, and that takes money. You know, it takes money to change policy. It sometimes takes decades of lobbying behind the scenes to change things. But sometimes all you have the energy for is, okay, I need to get the next client and I'm paying for ballet lessons, or I'm getting the next client to pay my rent. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. It is okay, because sometimes you need that really short sight. And then as you build up a sense of safety and your nervous system feels safe and the money starts flowing, then you can put your sights on bigger things. And I think for people, they can get so deflated by like the dreams are really admirable and incredible, but casting your mind so far ahead into investment properties and portfolios and whatever else is in your, you know, is something that you're dreaming bigger about when it comes to wealth and prosperity. It's just, for the time being, just keep yourself going, keep yourself safe, keep things flowing, and then incrementally, it goes back to what we said at the beginning, then incrementally you can, or one day you'll be looking back going, oh, it's because of all those small actions I took where I only had the next day or the next hour or the next
so well said
in mind. Yeah.
And, you know, that's a whole conversation, right? Is the nervous system thing of feeling safe. And that's one of the things I put on social media is it's safe for me to do this. It's safe for me to be expensive. It's safe for me to get the sale, because so much of it is like literally calming down your inner child, or that part of you that's like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you grew up in an environment like that, it's so hard to undo just with willpower and just pushing through and taking action. You have to do so much of that inner work. And even it doesn't end. I hate to tell people that, but some of my therapy that I've had in the last year or two is because I've never had the bandwidth to deal with some of my really earlier issues. And the difference now is I've got the money to deal with it, but you're still going to be you with more money.
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, there's no amount of money is going to make you a perfect version of yourself. You still have to just be really gentle. And part of the incremental stuff is acclimatizing yourself to more ease, more space, and without sabotaging it, which a lot of us do often.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of and this is a whole nother podcast episode, but a lot of celebrities do as well, because they're humans too. Like a lot of people, it's it's energetically holding that wealth, that prosperity, that money can be really at odds with how they're primed and what they've the fact that they've not acclimatized to hold that, and it just it ends up being a tabloid. Yeah, it's really sad. It ends up being a tabloid story, but that doesn't have to be your story if you consistently check in with your money and your nervous system, two very powerful things that are not going anywhere. If you consistently check in with them and do find a sense of safety and acclimatization, then the sabotages are far less likely to happen. Yeah.
You know, I love reading celebrity autobiographies for that exact thing, just to see what humans do with a ton of money. And I recently read Elton John's book, and, his early days, it was about buying love and excess and all that kind of stuff. And then he's gotten to a point now where he was like, yeah, I spend a ton of flowers, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore because I'm on top of my finances now and I know I can afford it. Instead of like in the 80s and 90s where his bank manager called and said, well, you've got to stop spending money on flowers because you literally have no money left. And he was like,
wow.
What? And so it's like money doesn't change those underlying behaviors, but you sometimes have to, put those things in place so you don't go to your default sabotaging behavior. Or it doesn't wreck you. So yeah, we could do a whole podcast just on celebrity memoirs, because
I love that. I love biopics. They're my favorite. Like just watching Straight Outta Compton a couple of weeks ago, that was a good one about how they got dicked around with their money and their contract, and so it's just I love those stories. I really love those stories. So Denise, I could talk to you all day, obviously, about so many things, but I know that we need to wrap up now. What's one secret that women hold about their wealth that you would love to encourage them to release?
Yeah, so I think we get caught up in timing a lot, of like, oh, well, I've got kids, or I'm too young, or I'm too old, or it's Mercury retrograde, or something like that, or my time will come. And so an affirmation I use a lot is it's my time and I'm ready for the next step. And I say this in bootcamp as well. I say it's your time and you're ready for the next step. So it's kind of like the L'Oreal. It's like, I'm worth it, you're worth it, we're worth it. It's our time. And so you can really use this in so many ways. So if you just write it down somewhere, it's my time and I'm ready for the next step. And each day a different word in it will have different meaning for you. So sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I've had my success now. And so I'll go, no, it's also my time, or you go, oh, well, it's the pandemic. No, this is our time. Like, come on, this is our time.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and I'm ready. Because, you never feel ready. You have to declare yourself ready. So sometimes you need I am ready. I've worked for this my whole life. I'm ready. And then it's like, I'm ready for the next step. Not everything. Maybe, and what you were saying before, when we worry about, oh God, what am I going to do when I have $1 million type stuff? You just get your first client, love.
Yeah.
Go to the next, just get the next client and see how you feel. And so, I just use that all the time to overcome any excuses around stuff like that. And there's something that's magic about it too. When you start to say, it's my time and I'm ready for the next step, opportunities will start to come in and you'll go, oh, I'm not ready. Hang on. No, I just declared myself ready. I am ready. I am ready for this next step. So it's a really good one. Use it on everything.
It is a good one, and it's timeless, and it really comes down to deciding. That's what I like. That's what's very sexy about it, is it's it's deciding, and it's not putting the power over to anyone or anything else out there. It's saying, I've decided this is going to happen regardless of the conditions out there, regardless of the context, regardless of the state of the world. I love that. It's very, it's bang on. I love it. It's really, really powerful. Denise, I've loved having you on today. I love being a part of Money Bootcamp. I'm pretty sure if anyone's interested in Money Bootcamp, can they DM you or
yes? So
page for it on the website?
Absolutely. So my website is denisedt.com and /bootcamp for bootcamp, or you could go to /blocks and there's a free workshop there. But I do love getting DMs actually. So my Insta is at Denise DT. So if you're in front of a computer, follow me at Denise DT. And anyone can join at any time. And I used to do it as a launch. And now I'm just like, oh, if it's urgent for you right now, come and join it and I'll help. We're ready to help. But I also love when people DM me, just like a little shift they've made in their life or something that they've taken on board from our interview, because I'm a Virgo. I love being of service. And so if someone's like, oh, I listened and then I did this, I'm just like, oh, yes, that's so good.
Yes, we like the action. We really like it. Yes. So thank you so much, Denise, for being on. Please go and follow Denise and maybe a follow-up episode in future.
Yes.
In order.
That'll be fun. And thanks for trusting me with your beautiful audience. And thanks, everybody.
No problem. Thanks, Denise. Thank you.